What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Carbonite Bounty BS. Me and the nerds back again, guys. So glad to see everyone here, and glad to get back into Star Wars Rebels, season 2, episode 1 or part 1, excuse me. It's before we even dive into things to get into things. I know we got a lot of new viewers, so DP, why don't you let everybody know where to find us at?
Nerdcyclopedia.com. People, make sure that you go into our site. You will get all our links to your favorite platforms that you can follow us on social media at nerdcyclopedia.com. We are on Facebook, Twitter. Also, make sure that you guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure that you are hitting that notification button. When anytime that we're on, you know that we're on. If you're on Facebook, make sure that you are joining us in our Facebook group, Carbonite Bounty BS, the Star Wars group. We've got a lot of good chatter going on there. If you want to leave us some feedback, like us or hate us, nerds at nerdcyclopedia.com. We will take that feedback and, spit it right back at you.
Gotta love live TV, ladies and gentlemen. Gotta love live TV.
I should have paid attention when I was watching the tutorial, guys. It's on me.
That's all right. Production value is always great.
Listen, I'm gonna seat in my pants fly like Han Solo. That's how
it is. Right?
There we go.
I don't do things by the book, and don't tell me the odds because I won't. I'll fail anyway.
Speaking of Han Solo, I know you guys discussed it last week on your part 2 or the finalization of season 1. We dive right into season 2 this time. We know that the Ghost Crew is part of the Phoenix Squadron, which these names they come up with, by the way, they're just like the ship name, the Ghost, Phoenix Squadron. I mean, Rose Squad, just the names they come up with, and then. I know DPs, stylistically and aesthetically, things like that, really like appease you. Ever since I've listened to some of the commentary you've given, that's kind of made me put a whole new spin on just different perspectives inside the Star Wars universe. Even like, you have the Inquisitors, just the way they label and label certain things has become really like, especially I think a Filoni detail, because with this George Lucas universe, I felt like things like this might have kind of slipped through the cracks, but he seems to kind of be covering every little aspect of every episode, of every character even.
Yeah, the names really lend to who it is. Like the Inquisitor, you know who that is.
Right.
The Lucas vibe was more like, well, here's a name, and I'm going to explain it later.
Exactly.
If we get to it.
Yeah, if we get to it, then we'll get to it. But you're just going to think about what it is. But what you're saying, T-Mitch, is perfectly right on the money, because they know Phoenix. This is what's a Phoenix? It's a great bird. It's a great explosion. It's an evolving thing, and that's what they are, right? I mean, they're definitely that. And their ship, Ghost. I mean, it's got a cloaking device, right? That's great.
Planetary. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's shaped like a stop sign.
Right. It shouldn't even fly. It shouldn't even be able to fly. It's shaped like a stop sign.
Whichever one it is right away, right?
Hitch around, so laws of gravity are just whatever in the universe.
Yeah, they fly with magic. It's all good. There's engines. Smack them. They work now. All right, fair enough. Like it's fine with me. That's smacking the thing and it working as a Star Wars. That's a Star Wars trope, and I'm totally okay with it. And this type of show is the type of show that lives in that world, right? Where you can whack something and it works. They're always, melting stuff and cutting through stuff and shooting stuff and using the physical reality, using those sorts of things the way you would in a Star Wars video game, right? It's really cool. I like Phoenix Squadron. It's reminding me of Ray Squadron, which I was asking for, and this already existed. I've said this over and over that I'm really glad we did the cartoon watch through, because this is what I wanted. Was this sort of like combined action, right? We got a mission, we're gonna do it. I wanted cameos from the big characters. I feel like that's been delivered on here. Hilariously. So for me, Phoenix Squadron and this turn that they've taken, where now instead of a band of brigands that are looking for an Ocean's 11 style score, right?
Right.
Now they're fighting with a purpose, and that makes things a little bit more serious, but it also opens the door for some cool stuff.
Yeah. And the squad, they have to figure out, do we still want to continue with these, these guys, or do we find that we're benefiting or do they find that they're benefiting themselves, just going out on their own, doing their own thing and everything? Should they play with as a team and be folded into as like a corporation, sucking up another another franchise and everything, or should they still work independently and stuff? So these are like questions that they're asking themselves. Some want to, some don't. So it's good stuff.
It's the original question, right? In Star Wars, this is the original question from Episode 4. Should I stay and hang with the rebellion, or leave to get my pay? It's literally, this is the Han's arc in Episode 4. It's what he says to Luke right before the trench run. He says, "Hey, come with me, kid. We'll make some cash. We'll cash in this reward, and we'll get moving." Right? That's the same choice that's offered to these characters. And maybe this is when I said, because I said this off mic, I said that this feels connected to Clone Wars, so tied and intimate, for reasons that we'll get into a little bit later, but also because of these sorts of thematic things, right? This feels like real connective tissue, not just to Clone Wars, but to the original trilogy. It is spanning that gap in a way that is making everything work in.
Yeah.
I really like this series a lot, and I definitely wasn't thinking it was going to surpass Clone Wars this quickly, but frankly, it's really excellent. It's an excellent series.
I definitely underrated this series, really based on the animation, because I was so used to Clone Wars style and everything, and this sort of threw me a little bit. Still had the same Filoni feel and everything, and it felt a little lighter. It felt
a little more. The characters look a little more Nintendo-ish. If you want to give them like a theme, like Nintendo-ish characters is what they look like.
Yeah, they brought back what's his name, Hondo, right?
Yes, they
that
did.
Was from Clone Wars, or Bad Batch. That was from a whole different series. And they brought him
Hondo,
back.
man.
I mean that.
Yeah.
I was so excited.
Yeah, that was legit. I mean,
you hear that voice, you're like,
yeah. He's also a Disney character now, as he's in Galaxy's Edge, so Hondo has a part to play also in Galaxy's. Black Spire. He's at Black Spire Outpost, what it's called. Excuse me. Yeah, he's at Black Spire Outpost. So Hondo is part of Disney Star Wars.
Does Hondo's species live for like 1,000 years? So he's just
I believe so.
What if Hondo was the connective to? He's in every single Star Wars series because he just lives that long and he's just always there. He's like, I'm still a pirate. I do this stuff.
Well, he could have been in Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi for sure, right? In the background. Right. I mean, he's that character, Weequay, right? He's one of the whatever that species.
How about him getting upset? Well, not getting upset when he found out Ezra lied to him about his name.
Oh, what does he care? Yeah,
he was like,
being lied.
You lied to me. I knew there was a reason I liked you. Oh yeah, he's definitely fun. I can see him appearing in if they have to do if he ever does get in live action, they have to do him right. If not get the voice actor to make him up, and to put makeup on him or something and everything, to fully imbibe the character.
It would be perfect for him to run into Han Solo. Everything I've said has come true so far, so I feel like if I just put it out there, it'll hit.
That would be a heck of a matchup. Oh man, the chemistry on that.
Why do you think Han comes in? So why do you think he shot first? Why did he shoot first? This is why it's so important that they make that movie, because we need to know why Han shot first, and I think that part of the answer to that was provided at the end of Solo. I don't think that we got nothing on that for sure, but I think that that's something Hondo is going to teach him for sure, right? Like over and over, he's like, "Wow, you just shot him." He's like, "Yeah," and
of course I did.
Why would not?
If you want to walk out of the bar, you shoot first,
right? That should be the whole lesson of that movie,
right? Exactly. It makes perfect sense. It's reality. It's the truth.
Especially bounty hunters, shoot them first.
Yeah, if you want to walk out of there, you shoot first.
Herodian? What did you even think?
Well, at least we have one answer to one of the unexpecteds of, we've asked and a lot of people wondered, and with you guys new to Rebels, I mean, we've always wondered how many Jedi escaped the temple? How many Jedi are still alive after Order 66? So we hear the story, and we start the story of Kanan Jarrus, who, frankly, to me, as a region of, and we'll get into this in later parts of this series, but he's basically a regent of Qui-Gon Jinn. I mean, another, if you would view as a gray Jedi, doesn't necessarily follow the traditional path of a Jedi Knight, a Jedi Master, so to speak. I guess we'll call him now with Ezra under his ring. So, yeah, very, I guess, noble in the Force. To me, like I said, he's basically a regen of Qui-Gon. The way he teaches him, the way he is with the Force, and as we'll find later out, just his character as itself. I mean, very, very, very mindful of the living Force, so to speak, not just what the tutelage is from the obviously the Council, everything they learned on Coruscant. It seems like the Jedi, and they tried to go that way, I think, with the final sequel trilogy, but how the Jedi has evolved now from, kind of like religion almost. You've had one specific way of doing something, and as it breaks up and it's destroyed and you rebuild, or there's a rebirth, which I felt that Star Wars should have been, one of the titles should have been Rebirth or Rebirth of the Jedi. It would have been great instead of Return of the Jedi. It should have been Rebirth of the Jedi. First episode 9, at least, that should have been right, Rebirth of the Jedi, and they should have ended that, but we'll get into that for another day. But I just felt like the way they did Kanan Jarrus kind of started that whole rebirth of what a Jedi really should be and what they think, because he is what a Jedi should be, not just this military, rigid, strict, not even a defender of the people. They were almost militarized by episode 2, 1.5, you will say. So,
but he had that scrappiness. I mean, he
yes,
was like, he had the military, the nobleness, the trait of the Jedi, but he was scrappy, which Qui-Gon was not. Qui-Gon was like deflect and run. Like, he was not a fighter. I didn't think it really ever was. He did when it came down to it. When Darth Maul confronted them in the energy field. I mean, he had to fight, but he was one to just. He felt it was better to run, and live.
Not
and then he had
age.
And
I think it was his age. I think that was his
12
age.
years old. He was plainly too young to be on there, first of all, and that was, I think, something that we saw all over the place at the end of the Clone Wars. And we know that we heard his voice, right? We heard him. He was prepubescent. I mean, they definitely chose to modulate it the way they did for a reason, because they made that scene after all of this. So this is pre-produced. This is like that scene from that we've already seen is like an allusion to this series instead of the other way around.
Right.
And it's making me realize all the feelings I have about the prequel trilogy is kind of the media as presented to me, right? When did I come into it? And I'll have a lot more to say about this as we go on, I'm sure. But anyway.
I mean, it would almost go to say that if you're stating it like that, it's almost like you're saying you should be taken with Star Wars. Give the media as it's presented to you. Okay, it's presented to you. You may not like how it tastes at the time and stuff, but once it gets other ingredients gets added, during other periods of time, it'll actually come together and stuff.
I think for me, it's like this Kanan thing, right? Freddie Prinze Jr., right? The only reason I realized this is because I've noticed that Freddie Prinze Jr. was in that first episode of Bad Batch, and I was like, that's weird. Because that seems like, why would he just be some kid? Right now, I didn't realize about all this stuff. Okay. So what I found is that now feels like one of those moments. It's like, oh man, right? Like it feels a little bit like a mind blower when all the problem is just that I hadn't done the reading. You know what I'm saying? And it made me realize that some of those connective things from like with Boba Fett in episode 2, right? Knowing that he was being trained in a specific way, knowing that he's exactly like these clones. So we don't have to ask ourselves, what would a clone be doing? We know it's Boba Fett, right? That's a pretty cool mind blower to realize later, because you see the clones everywhere. But at the time, it just seemed like a tie-in that didn't make a lot of sense. It seemed like a way to sell an action figure. And that perspective of how the media is released to me is really, turns out to be really important, because I can't think of a real difference between this, right? Just saying, oh, why do we have to see him, right? For no reason other than it was described in this series, right? Linear. But I'm seeing it the other way. So it's like, wow, you had the forethought to say here, we'll see this kid escape, right?
Right.
And then now it's landing all the way over here on this new series. So it feels way more interconnected than it would if I thought that in Bad Batch, that was just a way to sell more action figures for this character, right? Does that make sense?
Do we prefer our narratives linear or non-linear?
Well, this is one of those weird things where
yeah.
it doesn't matter what I prefer
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it's like a selection, right? It's like
Yeah.
they're curating how much of the history of this galaxy they want to show us and in what order they want to show it. So that's an interesting.
Here's the thing too, and we talk. I mean, we talk with people all the time who love Star Wars but never watch. I mean, they never watch the animated stuff. Who speak about things that happen in the regular. Well, I shouldn't even say regular because it's all the same thing to me. But who speak on just the movie stuff and take that as is and speak about all these things when we have like another perspective to make us with the animated stuff to make the whole context as a whole, to look as a whole and everything. So they speak you speak in one language. So I guess the next time you speak to a coworker about who's really heavy into Star Wars but tapped out at The Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker, I'll never watch that again, but didn't watch the Clone Wars or Rebels and everything. You're speaking like two different languages to them.
Yeah. I mean, a weird sidebar, and we'll park the Rebels discussion for a second. I've noticed as we're getting deeper into these Filoni stories, this is not a negative to George because it's George's universe, but it seemed like when George created Star Wars and he came up with this plan, granted this is, a 30-year continuum, it's like he baked a cake off the mind with no written down ingredients, and Filoni's actually baking a cake and he's writing down each ingredient he's making it. Because as we're seeing the stories evolve, George did these stories, and like we said, there were great characters that he didn't explain, that he left. That now we have Filoni who's basically studied his work. Oh, let me grab this character. Let me grab this guy. Let me tie him in. Let me make everything all make sense. Because we all said, between 1, 2, and 3, with George's family issues, his own issues with his health, a lot got left in the cracks, a lot got lost. And, when you see the original trilogy to the prequel trilogy to the even final trilogy, I just like how kind of Filonius came in and he started to take George's recipe and he's seen it, he's looking at it, and now he's writing down the ingredients and he's starting to fill in the cracks. He's adding certain elements to the cake and he's making the cake more delicious for us to eat. I mean, I never wanted to watch these shows. I never thought about it, but as I got into them, and as we said, that first shocker when I saw Clone Wars, when it started tying things in, making them make sense, I was like, okay, you have my buy-in. That's all it takes is the buy-in from us, right?
And remember when these came out, when Star Wars hit the theater, nobody had any idea that it was going to succeed. So Lucas basically was doing this as a day-by-day thing.
Right.
Fox said, "Okay, we'll gamble. It's okay. It's kind of like it's a cowboy movie set in space. So and they do well. Cowboy movies do very well. Humphrey Bogart succeeded a lot with cowboy movies and the Old West and all that. So okay, we'll let it go." And this thing exploded. He had to come up with something real quick. He said, well, the next thing is The Empire Strikes Back. So he threw that out there. He never expected it to be this linear thing with lineage.
Well, yeah. The first episode is episode 4. I mean, it was called Star Wars back in the day, but he later retired. This is the 4th episode.
And it was only one chapter. So episode could be broken up into multiple chapters, right? Mm-hmm. So this was like one little tiny piece of this huge thing that just vomited out of his head. He had no idea that it was going to have all these different spin-offs and that this was even a potential. He was just glad to make the money back from it and be able to pay for his education. That he was like thrilled. So now, like, he finished Empire, he finished Return of the Jedi, and he was like, well, now what? So he spent the next 30 years planning this nerd devastation that was just going to be unleashed with Phantom Menace, and that snowballed the whole thing.
It wasn't that long. It was like 12 years.
Yeah, well, yeah, wasn't it?
Before he started making it like 96-ish.
Yeah,
So
they
that long. I
started
mean,
releasing
It
little
seemed like
things.
for forever. You know?
it's
Yeah,
less
it seems like
time. It's
forever.
less time than between now and episode 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you hear the comments his ex-wife made about the movie, about episode 1? They're public.
Oh, good.
What did she say?
We'll get into, we'll dive into that, but it's not good. I mean,
I'll have to Google it.
it's on the internet.
Funnily enough, I think that part of this is that Star Wars changed a lot during production. Like the original
Right.
script, and this is one of the this is something I was thinking about. We were watching Rebels, is that in the original script, Chewbacca was kind of a green alien. You know what I mean? He was a green lizardy skin alien, kind of like what we got here. And we had an older Jedi, kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi, named Starkiller, kind of like Kanan, right?
Right.
So there's these like similarities to the crew of Ghost and how the original party of episode 4 was being written when Lucas first drafted it.
Interesting, huh?
So it's one of those really neat parallels. And I think, like I said, there's so many of these things where they're not, apart from the cameos from like Tar-Ken and Vader and, the real big players from the original trilogy, we're being linked together a lot more in thematics.
Yeah.
To the original trilogy than in plot. And that's super cool. I think that's the way to do it. It's neat.
Right.
Yeah, let's talk about some of these episodes though. Like how about the way the seasons just started off and everything? I thought it was just awesome, just having Vader come in there for a couple episodes and do his thing. Do that Vader thing that he does and everything. And our heroes are like, who is this guy?
They're like,
well, first off, dude comes out and he's like 6'12" compared to like Kanan and Ezra.
Yeah,
so when I saw the battle, I'm like, geez, dude's huge.
It's not fair.
Right?
Not at all.
Could you imagine Ezra's face? Like, that's the thing. Like, when I watch these episodes, like, you really become, like, you kind of become a character. And I'm, like, sitting there thinking, like, okay, if I'm a young Jedi, right, and I see this, like, whatever, this Sith dude in this costume, he just comes out looking, like, big as hell, like, and the way he just dispatches him easily, like, and it doesn't...
like, good, here I go.
Yeah, right?
Ready.
You're just, like, hanging on. It's like, when you're first, when you're a midget and you go to, like, Mighty Mites, it's like your first practice, like, that first hit.
Yeah.
Imagine that. You're seeing the big guy, and then, you don't even know who he is.
And he uses his force powers and everything, and they can't stop him. Big thing just came right on Vader, and he just just lifted off of him. I mean, who is there? Like, who is this guy?
Yeah, right.
Who he is and everything. We're excited to see him, but our heroes are just like just now being introduced to him. That's what makes this thing just so great, because they spent the first season introducing the characters, getting us used to them, and now they're bringing on, like Hitch was saying, like the main players, Vader, Tar-Ken, Lando's coming in and everything.
Mm-hmm.
They're putting the chocolate into the cake and everything.
The ingredients.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The spices, and just making it like super tasty for us and stuff. So I was loving, like, the couple episodes Vader showed up and then just hauled his butt out.
Palpatine came in and he was like, Lord Vader, it is too early in the season for you to resolve this arc. And he was like, get out of here.
And how about Ahsoka? So if you come in with no sense of Clone Wars and watch this, okay, you're first of all, like, as a viewer, you're like, okay, why is Ahsoka being funny acting or whatever with Vader or whatever? So there's that. But as a Clone Wars watcher and stuff, I was waiting. I was like, are they gonna let this pass without Ahsoka actually? Because this is not called the Clone Wars 2. It's called Rebels. It's not about the Clone Wars. So are they gonna let Ahsoka's story from her relationship with Anakin and everything, Yeah. Are they going to cross that? Sure enough, they did. They had the couple, like, but they didn't do it like hit you over the head with it. They had a couple scenes where Ahsoka was just sort of looking as the ships were flying by. Vader's ship was flying by, Ahsoka's ship was flying by. They had a couple of scenes where her eyes was sort of averting and like she was feeling funny, but the great thing about the writing in the show, they didn't have to use words to call action to it. They just used her facial expressions and stuff, and then finally it came.
It'll come back. It'll come back. I'm sure there's going to be some. There's going to be a conflict there.
Yeah. That's what you call a smoking gun.
It's like, how do you portray a telepathic power in a cartoon? Like, how do you do it? Do you use force bubbles or whatever? Like, how do you do it? And I think that's a really great way to do it, because she, like a Jedi for the Force, right? It's the way it's described in books is it's like Jedi have like flashing lights like cop cars, right? Unless they turn them off. And usually they just walk around, they just go on like this. So other Jedi can see them. And then, so Vader can sense her, and she's going, so she's hiding. So she is being furtive. She is being dodgy, right? That sense you got is correct, because she's actually using her Jedi ability to do that. Too late, right? Which we know. Excellent way to put that in. This is so cool. It's interesting how Ahsoka and Vader have this relationship, and it feels a lot to me like Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, with Vader being Frankenstein's monster and Ahsoka representing basically the war, right?
Right.
How Vader was created by this crucible of the Clone Wars, and now Ahsoka, who basically same deal, right, is being like pursued relentlessly across the galaxy by this monster, this unstoppable,
and forget she was created from the same thing that created Vader, the battle, the war, the conflict.
Imagine if you found out like your older brother murdered a bunch of kids. That's literally basically what that is, right?
What would that do to you? How would that
mess you up?
How would that drive you, and what your future would be? So she's playing the game. She's doing exactly what she should be doing.
Yeah, I love how they don't, they give us bits of Ahsoka, but they're not taking it off the our main characters and stuff. This is not Ahsoka show. This is not the Clone Wars,
Right.
But we still have some unresolved stuff from the Clone Wars. If you're going to add Ahsoka, you're still adding some elements from that show that still need to be answered and still need to be resolved. I love how they're writing, they're interweaving, those elements in there without having to detract from, the fun that we get with
from Ezra's story, basically. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and as we progress, you'll see a little more about the story of Ahsoka and how things progress. So as we get towards the end of this series, you'll see why the fandom blew up about the character of Ahsoka, because they do a really good job of rounding off kind of her and Anakin's arc from the Clone Wars.
Sure, yeah.
I still want to know why he didn't kind of throw her lightsaber back at her or something. That was my one moment I think they missed in all of it, because remember he picked it up at the end of Clone Wars and kind of held it. I wish there was a point to where that would be another prevalent thing. I think they missed that.
You think he should have saved it? Well, he did, and
messed up.
Give it to her.
Yeah, or
back to her, so she could kill him with it.
Well, maybe she drops it.
Yeah, he knows
fair fight,
Yeah, she's not going to kill him, but as we see, you'll see their characters progress, and it's interesting. But yeah, the lightsaber at the end of Clone Wars, that still sticks to me. How he kind of sense that, and then they sense each other, and it's kind of as Hitch just said, and even DP, they sense each other in the Force, so they're now becoming more Force sensitive, and they're being able to sense different things throughout the Force. Obviously, she's learning on her own because she doesn't have a master, and she's basically learning the Force either from, and I don't think I've ever heard this, but I don't know if Qui-Gon or somebody is guiding her through the Force, or she literally is just moonwalking with her eyes closed.
She's watching YouTube videos or something. Right?
Jedi Force.
How to be a Jedi, yeah.
All right,
making it up.
All right, guys. I'm gonna actually weigh in here because I will tell you that you don't need a teacher to learn everything. First of all, second of all, I think, and this is my opinion, that being a Jedi is a lot like having an intuitive knack for something, right? Everybody has had an intuitive knack for something they pick up, a video game like Super Mario Brothers, something like that, right? Everybody's had that. I think for a Jedi, one of the things, That's the Force, right? You have an intuitive knack for everything. So if I were a Jedi and I sat there and I thought about how to become a more powerful Jedi and I concentrated on it and I used the Force to guide me in the right direction, which is what the Force does, then I shouldn't really need anything other than that.
You should need a teacher.
I should be able to become more attuned with the Force by myself, especially after growing up in the temple.
But having the guidance of a elder would keep you from falling to the dark side, because it's very easy. It's very easy to go that way, because you become self-indulgent. Once you become self-indulgent, you start using the Force for your own gain, which it's human.
Right.
It's only human.
Mm-hmm.
That starts you down the path to the dark side. And that's been the story the whole time. And you have to have someone to guide you. You have to have an anchor, a waypoint. You have to have someone that will put you back, instruct you, not smack you around, but put you back onto the right path. And who's that going to be for Ahsoka? Because she's going to be a character. Someone has to. Will it be Kanan? Kanan's busy with Ezra.
Right. Yeah. Ahsoka's on the search. I'm liking the Inquisitors. I'm liking the
that was my next part.
The female Inquisitor who I was like, this voice just sounds familiar. Why does she sound like Buffy? The vampire, of course, Sarah Michelle Gellar, who is Freddie Prinze Jr.'s wife.
Right, wife. So, no kidding, right?
Of course,
that happened.
Right.
For kids who are watching this that would have no way to know. In the 90s, these two were basically, maybe the hottest teenage couple ever. I mean, it was ridiculous. And Freddie Prinze Jr. was in a lot of cool stuff like She's All That, which was a really great date movie when I was in high school. And, Sarah Michelle, she was in Cruel Intentions very famously. And, of course, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So,
right.
Yeah, they have punch for fogies in my age bracket. I'll say it like that, right? I'm probably right in that maybe 5 up, maybe 3 up, 3 down range where that would be the case. But I'm there. I consider them to be stars because of this.
I was surprised to see her there, but not surprised. I was only surprised because I had to just remember, okay, she's Freddie Prinze Jr.'s wife. So why is she, talking like how she's talking and everything? I love that character. I love that Inquisitor because she talks back to, or she's talking in a certain type of way to like the main Inquisitor that we just met and everything, or the other Inquisitor. There's a few of them.
Yeah, so there's the Grand Inquisitor, then there's those two, her and the larger one. There are other Inquisitors, and it's an interesting take because you have the Sith, and then you have basically this side faction of dark side users.
They aren't Sith.
No,
they're like
dark.
Sith.
Yeah,
sort of like
correct.
The Jedi were to
to me, they're kind of like the and this is what like made the final sequel trilogy weird, because they had the Praetorian Guards that basically were the Inquisitors, which would be the Jedi Temple Guards. So what these Inquisitors are supposed to be is basically like the Temple Guards. They would sit outside. You had to go through all these people with these dark sabers or these red lightsabers in order to get to Palpatine, in order to get to the Sith Masters. That's what the Inquisitors are supposed to be meant to be, and that's what the Praetorian Guards ended up becoming, was basically a new version of the Inquisitors, which was a new version of the Jedi Temple Guard. So it's like an evolution of the character, which is why I liked it, because they pull out these spinning sabers, which are like ridiculously cool to me.
Right.
Yeah,
I wish they made one of those. I wish they made one of those.
Yeah, it was very cool. I was gonna pick, if someone said you could have one weapon from any science fiction, anything, any sort of fiction story, I would definitely take one of those lightsabers. Multi-use. But then I like Ezra's blaster piece.
Oh yeah.
No, the blaster saber.
It's very cool.
I like it. Cool. I like it.
I don't know, man. Have you ever played Jedi Outcast or any of those games?
Yeah.
Oh, there was a cheat code you could put in that would make the lightsaber combat realistic, and I'll put it this way. With a realistic lightsaber, there is absolutely no need for a blaster, especially if you have the ability of telekinesis. It is just super redundant.
Right.
Why would you need it? You just don't, because it's just like, Like we see these fight scenes and they're sanitized, but if it actually cut someone's arm off just looking at it, I mean, a gun's not really going to be be a defense against.
I mean, it's a cool added feature.
It's more of a last defense. So you're down on the ground and you got nothing, and multiple targets are coming toward you, and you don't. You've lost an arm. Maybe you don't have a leg.
Well, all right. So from a literary perspective, obviously this represents the hybrid nature of Ezra's nature. While he's naturally a Jedi, he's also the type of person that doesn't feel secure and feels like he needs extra things. Plus, he's not really super well versed in the Jedi arts, and so he feels like he needs a crutch, especially as he keeps coming up against insanely powerful Force users like Anakin Skywalker. Kanan's lightsaber is very much in the same way a metaphor for himself. He doesn't keep it together. But when he needs to, he can put it together.
Mm-hmm. You know what I really appreciate in the show, and I know DP and Ken will. I like the fact that our main character Ezra actually takes damage. I mean, he gets his ass kicked, and it's really nice to see the main character that's not OP, that's not overpowering. I mean, he gets beat up. I mean, the last couple episodes, he's getting when him and Hondo. He's getting kicked around, stomped out. I'm like, geez, man. I'm not used to seeing the main character actually, suffer. Mm-hmm. So,
well, Han went through some of that too. I mean, there's always one that gets really jacked up, and Han Solo definitely, in Empire Strikes Back, got the worst of the Empire. I mean, we saw it, and it was horrible, and that's why I think if it was released now, it would have had a PG-13 rating. I mean, it was totally violent. So I mean, I that makes total sense. But I like to see the hero get some chinks out of the armor. I mean, you can't be perfect all the time.
It's interesting they use the way the Sith use torture to lure the Jedi, and that's a thing they do. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, yeah.
I'm gonna torture you until your master shows up. That's gonna get the job done. It's so brutal and effective. You know what I mean? It's just exactly the sort of thing a ruthless evildoer would do.
I mean, that's just what it is. How about Rex coming back?
Yeah, oh my God!
Old man Rex.
All of them coming back.
I
am so stoked.
Great. All of them beat up. Trade Federation, or when it was the Trade Federation, it was what tech was it? It was it was
the Walker.
Yeah,
the 8-leg Walker.
Yeah, it was all buttoned together and had tanks and shit over it. And,
yeah.
So Rex, what are you up to? I'm gonna hunt caterpillars down here.
Okay.
You want to come with us into space? Space is terrible. I can show that in space.
I've been there before. I'm not going back. He had a beard and everything. I mean, he looked great. He looked. I didn't even recognize him at first.
No, I mean, totally different animation style, and from what he did, what they did in Clone Wars, but just was fit right as a glove into this group and everything.
And for us, because of where we are in the release of Bad Batch, and I really hope that we see a lot more of him in that, but we see him walking away from them, you know what I mean, in Bad Batch, saying, "Oh, you got your chips fixed," and he just puts that hood over his head and disappears into this series, right? Now, all the clones are basically the same age, so we know it's not like that there's no Star Wars stuff happening in an era after the Bad Batch where the batch should be age-wise legit to be okay to be there. Right, they age faster than everyone else, just like Rex, but they'll be about that age.
Right.
So they could be. I mean, I could definitely see them showing up. What I'm saying is, I could see them showing up in live action, and this is giving me more evidence that makes me think that it could legit happen, and it would be awesome.
I mean, I almost have no doubt one of these characters, if not many of them, are going to be showing up in the streaming series at the very end. Well,
let's think about who's in live action now. I mean, there's Ahsoka's in live action now, which connects the Mandalorian to this. Mm-hmm. Which I will say, if you were talking to people and you want them to watch this stuff, that's the gateway. My father-in-law watched the Mandalorian, and he does not know anything about this. He said, "What's about these Jedi?" And I'm like, "Oh man." Anyway, that's all Pat Anderson for. So. This is, but there's connective tissue here. You have Vader, you have Tar-Ken. You have so many of these characters that we've seen in live action and in other series, and there's just all these connective threads that run their way through Rebels that again connect this media to media in other eras. This is one of those sinew series that link. What are the characters going to be when we're real excited to see them in Mandalorian season 3? I know because we're obviously all just like, do it.
Yeah.
Where is it? Why isn't it here? You know what I mean? And it links it to these cartoons, and it's like I'm like shaking to rewatch The Mandalorian after watching these cartoon series because now, like, when Ahsoka shows up, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose it in that episode. Yeah. And if you remember her introduction is freaking awesome. Yeah. Like they show her and she's just mowing people down. So I'm like ready.
It was awesome. I didn't even know too much about the character. Now seeing, I went back and actually watched the episode just before the Rebel season and everything. That was an awesome episode. The samurai thing, the fight at the end and everything. Whew, man, yeah. It was some good stuff. Good stuff. But yeah, the Rex stuff, it was getting me because I thought it was just going to be a one and done episode with him. He ended up hanging with the crew and stuff, interacting and actually butting heads with who was he butting heads with? The other
everybody.
Yeah, he was butting heads with everybody, but he was mainly butting heads with the one guy, from our crew. The
Zeb.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense because that's his character. That's what he does. He's like
exactly.
He's like a little bit of Chewbacca. So you can get with him. So what the introduction of the B-wing fighter.
Oh yeah.
So now there has to be more because that was a whole episode, right? There has to be more to that, and that was
that episode 7?
I think it was 7 to 8. I can't.
Yeah,
I'm going ahead. I think it might have been 8. That when they commissioned this like exquisite fighter that they thought, this thing ain't gonna fly, and guess what? It flew, and it had the trajectory blasters.
Yep.
Like the Death Star. Like that was weird, right?
Right.
There has to be something there.
Yeah. Hera was flying it, right?
Yeah.
That
was episode 7.
First we thought it was gonna fall, it was gonna drop, wasn't gonna fly, and here it is. It's the most versatile, agile fighter. And I always loved the B-wing fighters. I mean, it was always a thing, even in the old days, like when I was young, the B-wing fighter was the rare one. Like you wanted to find it on the shelf because it was cool and you never could find it. Now it goes for like $500, $600, like a vintage one. So that was, to me, that was like an important little nugget of gold that I think they dropped in there for the fanboys, because how did that fighter come about? Well, here it is. Here's the entire story of how that particular rebellion destruction device was invented, and then we saw it in the best post prequel ever, right? They were dropping mines onto the First Order ship with B-wing fighters, right?
Okay.
Well, also I believe there's inklings. So in the Avengers Endgame moment of Episode 9. This B-wing is actually in that scene. So if you freeze frame it, this B-wing is in that scene. I believe they said the ghost
from Rebels.
Correct.
Awesome. Orange, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know if Hera's piloting it or not. They haven't confirmed that. I've read the book a couple times. It's still kind of in the air.
Where do you have to freeze frame it? Like
when everybody comes up and all the ships come through the atmosphere.
Yeah,
it's in there. It's one of the ships. It's listed, yeah. The Ghost is listed as flying in that as well. So there's all these nostalgic moments. It was their Avengers Endgame moment to where they brought all these details, all these minute details into it. So
if they change it, if they change that movie like they change everything else, and that's not a negative thing, but if they change it to make it so that we get live action, like how they go like Rogue later like that, and it pops in all these people, like that would maybe make that like raise that movie 2 points for me if they just did that like you're saying, right? Because it would make all that actually make sense.
Still 6.5.
For me, we go from a 10
Right.
to a 12.
Still a 6.5 now. We've dropped that down to a 6.5. But
I caught two things that night. I think COVID-19 and the movie, and I'll tell you that the movie was the worst of the two. So that's my.
The movie was worse than
I mean, it was December of 19, so I'm obviously kidding, right?
But no, I cannot wait to get back into those because Ken, I don't know where his rating's coming from, but like I said, it's 10 it's 10 out of 10. It's a 6.5 now.
It's 10 out of 10.
Now, Ken, as you know, for a movie to receive a grade of 10, it does have to be perfect, and I will be pointing out several of the errors that I detect on the movie to you during the review.
Well, I'll raise your errors, and I'll show you where that movie is a 10 out of 10.
Now you see here how Palpatine is a marionette puppet, but not a literal marionette puppet, which would be better, but a figurative one where he is half machine, twisted and evil.
You know what? They could do that whole movie with stick figures. I'd still give it a 10.
Who sir is piloting these ships of the Emperors? Who is staffing these crews for Palpatine?
Yes, I really can't wait to get into it. It's literally going to be Daggers Out versus. That's the episode when we watch episode 9. It's going to be Daggers Out versus Ken.
There's going to be there's probably some media where we're going to have to chop it up. Like we're just going to have to split it a little. But there will be. Check your back.
It's definitely good. It's definitely going to be some questions when we get there. So
questions.
Yeah.
Questions.
Yeah.
Like Palpatine all of a sudden gets battle meditation and he just rids everybody. Like, come on, man.
So I recognize to you that this here Dark Jedi, Kylo Ren, comes to the aid of this here lady, Daisy Ridley, Ray, and he just done disappears.
Well,
he just done disappears.
You have to get rid of Ben Solo altogether. So Kylo Ren never existed.
So I present to you that Kylo Ren existed for much of these movies, for perhaps several of them.
All lies.
Yeah. But yeah, guys, I mean, once again, another episode, another great panel discussion with Rebels Part 1. We're going to break this down to the second step. So we're going to do 8 to 15, 8 to 14.
8 to, what's the next 7? 8 to, yeah, let's do 8 to 15.
Okay. And we'll finish 16 to 22 at the end.
Yeah. But next week, we're talking about Visions. Yes. Yeah. Visions and, we'll get back to Rebels right after that because Visions just came out. All the episodes dropped on Disney Plus, so all 9 episodes are there. They're like 14 to 15 minutes a piece.
Watch them now. Right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll be getting back to that.
It's Star Wars Animatrix. I'm stoked, man.
Yeah.
I hope they show us how they burnt the sky.
Oh, man. Hey, I love Animatrix. That was very moving for me.
It was definitely better than it was definitely the best thing they put out after the first movie, right? Like we can all agree. I mean, this isn't that sort of this isn't that podcast. We can all agree, certainly, Ken. We can all agree amongst ourselves that The Matrix 3 was a pile of crap. It was a terrible movie. It was a movie as incomprehensible as it was unnecessary.
Absolute garbage. It was.
Yeah. We are all in agreement here, sir.
I do not agree. I love that movie. I'm a Matrix apologist.
Sequels too?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, we'll see when we'll see what their sister does with it. That's all I'll say.
What Lana does.
There's a reason they didn't want to do the movie.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, the brother, the other sister. Yeah,
the Wachowski sisters gave it to their sister to do. So we'll see how that works out.
Interesting. But great first set of episodes. Can't wait to get on to these next set. Can't wait to look at Visions. It's looking. I mean, from what I've seen about the Visions and everything, it's looking awesome. Like Kim was talking about the anime manga stuff. It's just George Lucas based a lot of his Star Wars stuff on, samurai, movies that he used to watch. And everything.
Ronin,
Yeah.
the Seven Samurai was a movie that was he watched that empowered him with the Jedi and the Force. That's where he got the idea for it.
Okay.
So the idea that there were these Ronin soldiers that were sort of on their own, those are the Jedi. I mean, and after Clone Wars, they were definitely Ronin. They were just franchised warriors.
Oh yeah. That's 100% the way to describe Kanan and all of them. Everyone that we've encountered anyway are Ronin for sure. I mean, but the state, of course, was corrupted by the Sith. Okay, I'm done. I'm not doing it. Sorry, guys. I messed this episode up enough.
You got to get the Jedi back together somehow.
Those Jedi.
Something.
Yep. What about those Jedi? Tell me about that, Scott. I don't understand.
I mean, he's not out of touch or whatever. He just doesn't watch this stuff. So. I mean, he's at least accepting of me. What can I say? I can't complain.
No. Well, once again, guys, as we wrap up, I appreciate everybody watching, listening, subscribing, making sure you're smashing that like button, making sure you are leaving us comments on all our platforms, as it gives us, things to discuss as well. So until next week, as we tackle into Star Wars Visions, guys, this is the way.
This is the way.